This information may be interpreted as science fiction or however the viewer decides. It is shared for entertainment purposes, although we take it with utmost importance. Class 15. Our minds matter, affecting the field, collective responsibility.
Hello back! How have you been? We meet again and we will continue with the last part, for now, of this important series Mind Matters. Today we will talk about one of the most essential parts of the subject, your role and even responsibility in the formation of reality for the larger collective. Huh? Responsibility? Don't I have enough responsibilities in my life? Well, not in the sense of something you must do or else. It's mostly something we do naturally anyway. But I really want you to be aware of it, so stay tuned. Very soon you will see what I mean. The topic of the last video was the subconscious and the unconscious, and how we generate our reality and our perceptions of it out of there, and not so much and not only from the conscious, more superficial level of our being. Reaching that level of ourselves is not always easy and requires deep introspection of our inner core beliefs on the personal level. But what about the collective one? What about the collectively rooted shadows and limitations? What about the previously mentioned mass perception agreements? Ideas that shape our society from deep within. This is exactly what I want to talk about today. As just as there are profoundly seated programs within our own psyche, there are also those forming and molding us from within the web of the collectively held perceptions. That's an important element in the manifestation process that we are mostly unaware of. To understand how it is possible, it is important to grasp, or at least consider, that we are not really fully separate beings. No species are. And we are connected to other members of the human race through the unconscious field, through commonly agreed on ideas, unconsciously inherited memories, many of them taken for granted as unquestionable ways our reality supposedly works. Some of them useful and obvious, operating as innate programs common to all mankind, such as spreading the cheeks to smile to indicate content, having chairs as something comfortable to sit on, something common among Lyrian people across the universe, not only Earth, by the way, etc. While many others quite restricting and even downright false, such as previously mentioned ideas of trusting whoever holds the official authority, or that we are the only intelligent life out there. Even aging with the rate we do on Earth, I perceive it as the collective manifestation based on the ingrained idea passed from one generation to the next that it is simply part of life. We need to be very careful when absorbing and navigating such collectively programmed deep perception agreements, as our reality reflects back what we download, so to speak, from the collective unconscious. So, if you grow up believing that only hard work is a virtue and can bring you what you need economically, for example, then wanting to manifest that extra financial comfort through something you perceive easy may not bring the results.
If manifesting things and situations takes time in a place like Earth, and in all other similar places, it is because there is a complicated consciousness dynamic going on there, where our immediate desires are dampened by a larger collective, by the soup of consciousness we are immersed in, the collective unconscious.
And that is precisely why so much manipulation and mind control are happening on Earth. Those who govern our world from behind, and I'm referring to the more negative groups and races, are highly aware of how important it is to collectively shape mass beliefs. They know the implications of that, of the role that consciousness plays in generating reality, especially collectively, which interests them the most. And they use us all together as the great manifesting hive machine. How? By inserting false and limiting ideas, fear-based emotions, causing conflicts and suffering to instill insecurity, and directing our creative attention toward what they want us to think. Why? Because a society that is mentally free, fearless, happy, and healthy is hard to control, and above all, free to manifest a positive reality for themselves that transcends the narrow coral they want us in. And that is why we are key. That is why our consciousness and perception matter. That is why it is so important to start awakening to all different kinds of manipulations imposed upon us as truths, question mass beliefs, free our minds, and be independent in the choices of what we take on as part of our worldview and why. The negatives have been hard at work maintaining us within guided perceptual limits, so that from within those limits, we keep generating the timeline they want us in. It's time to go beyond and take charge of the future possibilities we wish to create for ourselves and this planet. Change the mass perception of things as a whole, insert into it other values and more integrated, positive, expansive ideas and possibilities, and you will end up manifesting and engineering a whole different direction for the human race, a different future. And it may come as a surprise to some of you, but we are all those timeline engineers for the human race. Our thoughts, emotions, perceptions, and visions matter. And they matter exponentially more the more awakened we become. The higher our awareness, the more responsible we become for what we project. Let's see why. This is where we come to the responsibility mentioned at the beginning of today's video. The higher our awareness, the more responsible we are for what we project. How so? First, let's briefly look at what it means to have higher awareness, to be more awakened, to raise our consciousness. These are terms widely used nowadays. But what is it referring to? There could be many interpretations according to one's worldview, and I will give you mine. The awakening process in general stands for having one's consciousness able to perceive and expand in new directions, to grow and integrate new points of view and insights, and to become more holistic in one's approach towards self and reality. It means a clearer and wider perception range, which allows the interpretation of life situations in more ways than one, beyond the rigid framework of ideas coming from dubious exterior sources without being contemplated as fitting or not into one's life by the individual itself. Independent thinking is one of the key elements of heightened awareness. And importantly, it is not something that is final, as growing in awareness never ends. As explained by our off-Earth human friends, higher awareness also means more data is processed by your conscious and unconscious mind, meaning that you learn and build into yourself and into the paradigm of your reality more knowledge upon which to base it. Your world literally expands as you process and integrate more understanding of life around you. Why would that growth in awareness now imply responsibility for the collective? Because as your consciousness of self expands, so does the interaction with the etheric field we are all immersed in and constantly drawing from to create our lives. We no longer function from the more superficial individual and collective mental programs running at the back of our subconscious, but we have a much stronger, purposeful imprint on that field. As our thoughts are purer and not being intercepted, or at least not as much, our connection to the source field is clearer and more impactful. What we project is more intense.
Higher awareness means a higher energy interaction with the field, and that also means that you have a higher influence or power over the potential energy field that you are creating.
Raising your consciousness, your understanding, makes your thinking produce progressively higher and stronger scalar effects. Therefore, working on themselves, on improving themselves, results in their thoughts and actions coming from those thoughts, becoming stronger and stronger. The higher understanding and perception a consciousness is, the more influence it will have with its thoughts and actions on the whole, in an exponential way. It also implies that you acquire progressively more responsibility for what is happening.
Stronger and higher scalar effects. Scalar here means that its influence is multi-level and far-reaching, that the thoughts produced by such a consciousness growing in awareness extend far beyond one's own individual personal life and field, but feed the collective one too. How? Remember what I mentioned above about us all being connected through the collective unconscious? That is how. Whatever we put out mentally, whatever we insert into that collective human field with our frequency, thoughts, and intentions, is being received by that field. And if it is pure and positive, it is aiding in its transformation. The collective mind field is not some kind of fixed reality. Some ideas there probably are more fixed than others, but in general, it is moldable and always reacting to what we put into it. And that is the responsibility we all hold here. That is why many of us chose to be on this planet at this time. To reprogram the collective human unconscious with new ideas and higher values we bring from other, more elevated places and realms we come from. To transform its shadows and help move it in a new, more positive direction. And you play a role, even if you don't know you do. happens, my friends, because at the higher level of our being, whether we are aware of it or not, most of us are not, we are not really a single consciousness, a unit. We are connected with others. We are larger than only this one seeming identity. Have you heard the term "we're all one" repeated so often out there? Well, it's not just symbolic. On a deeper spiritual level, that is literal. And worry not, it doesn't take away your individuality and unique feeling of self. It simply means that our ideas transcend our range of identity perception and reach that larger field. Hence, the responsibility of what we put into it. Listen carefully now to these two important quotes.
A person who rises in density understands that he is not a single consciousness, but a collective of consciousnesses. You are never one person but a collective. The higher you are on the scale of perception of consciousness, the higher you are, as in your existential density dimension, the more and more you will be the result of a collective of consciousnesses, the ones that form you. That is to say, that although you have a sense of a localized I, you are really formed by other people who, described in another way, are also you. This means that a being of high densities, whatever he thinks and does, has a greater influence on a collective. That is why people who have high perception, who are awake and positive, with their thoughts and their mere presence, will have exponentially more influence on the nature of reality than a legion of the sleeping ones. They will carry an enormous responsibility for how they influence the collective. The more conscious a person is, the more influence they will have on what they will manifest in the collective reality. That is why you have control, and not the governments, which are the result of what the average sleeping collective manifests.
Important words, aren't they? I love it. I must say that long before I learned about this collective responsibility of the more awakened people, I have somehow always felt that it was my job, or part of it, like a duty, to maintain my frequency high and positive while here in this life. In fact, when the Facebook came out and I opened my account there on Facebook, long time ago, I even put there as a job description a frequency maintainer, because I just had this intuitive feeling like I'm supposed to keep the frequency high. And I remember even when I have down moments or, very sad and low emotions, I don't tend to stay there very often, as if there's this voice inside of me telling me to come out of there, because it's like I am in conflict with the duty. It's like with my role, or with my, some kind of a self-imposed commitment to fulfill, to maintain the frequency. And this also reminds me of something my partner, Matthias, actually told me recently. He has been studying the Hermetic principles and ancient Egyptian teachings. And there it was explained how actually the Egyptian pharaohs or kings, I don't remember now, they had these responsibilities metaphysically, esoterically, to maintain the positive future for the whole country, for the whole land, for the whole region, for Egypt. It was like their responsibility. It was on them to maintain the positive future for their people. And of course, they were involved in rituals, and they had, ceremonies, and they were, organizing these events to maintain the future of Egypt. But the consciousness and the mind played a role, and it was on them, as it was expected of them. So I don't know, I have this in me to want to maintain the frequency high. And now, let me share with you something very interesting. In 2021, there was a 1-year-long study done by the group of our non-human friends about the magnetic influence structures of Earth's inhabitants, humans and non-humans, animals, plants, on Earth's magnetosphere. And the chief science officer of the team at the time, Savel, shared what he found. Listen to this. According to our friend Yaski, the whole, the universe, the source, is the direct result of the sum of the individual consciousnesses. So, an advanced being is not just one being, but the result of the average of multiple beings of lesser consciousness that compose it like cells in a body. This means that the people with higher awareness, like starseeds for example, those who incarnate on Earth more recently from other star systems or realms, have a much more extensive influence on the rest than those who are still sleeping, so to speak. Savel explained the following.
The starseeds are not equivalent in frequency to the population average. From observation, I can see with sensors, spectrometers, and interferometers that starseeds have the magnetic strength and influence on the total frequency of the place of many normal people, sometimes equivalent to several 100,000 average people for a single starseed. Being that, in a scientifically measurable way, the enormous creative responsibility of each starseed can be proven. We don't need to change all the humans, just unite the starseeds. Each starseed, on average, is equivalent in its creative frequency to 1,500 normal humans of what you call the matrix. And those average starseeds are not particularly awakened. Many times, we can even confuse them with more matrix human people. One highly awakened starseed has influence over tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, sometimes more, influencing millions.
Now, does it mean those more awakened people must do something about this influence they have? They can, but not necessarily. Sometimes their mere existence is enough. What they think, how they live, what they emit. As Savel explained, even if a strong starseed separates itself from society and hides in the Amazon, he or she will still influence the Earth's magnetic field and its average. If that starseed connects with others, their influence is exponentially greater, as is the result, which is to raise the average planetary frequency. But in general, just by
existing and pursuing their life interests, they're already helping and influencing the field of consciousness of the collective, without even having to dedicate themselves to anything specific related to awakening other people. Their mission is simply to help by the mere fact of existing.
This is why a single strong starseed can alter the vibration of an entire collective of people, or even of a planet, becoming a nexus point, or beacon, from where the energy of higher and more positive realms comes into Earth. Because the starseed is a match with the energy of those higher realms, its very ideas are telepathically shared into the collective unconscious, with it seeding new and more positive ways to interpret reality.
And that is why who we are, what we think, and what we believe matters. That's one of our missions on Earth. To be channels through which By means of telepathic connection with the unconscious field of humankind, we can inject it with more inspired insights and knowledge, all in order to trigger the sleeping masses out of the slumber and remind them that there is more. I will briefly mention here that this kind of responsibility also extends towards the negative influence we will have when feeling very low emotions. And that is also why the governing elites are hard at it to have our attention focused on negative situations, to drag our frequency down and not let it have a positive impact on society. As we were told,
an awakened person with fear of something who is manifesting negative things, by being in a negative thinking spiral for example, will have the ability to manifest those negative things much faster than the average sleeper. This is very dangerous, and people should know it.
Wow, so what this means practically here, and I don't want to make it sound like I am guilt-tripping anyone who is going through difficult times, is that whatever you are thinking and feeling in that moment will also have an impact on that larger collective field. Of course, when someone is really down, they are not going to care in that moment how their bad mood affects the field around them, understandably. And it's also okay to feel down and not positive at times. I am referring here to more permanent, destructive mental patterns. Those are not healthy, not to the larger field you are immersed in, and most of all, not to you. So I mention this so you can try to guard and catch yourself before you fall too much. I hope you enjoyed today's video and this mini-series, and I hope it inspired you to become more sovereign in what you choose to feed your mind with and what you choose to emit. Take charge of your manifestation power. Observe how it works. And know that you have the power to steer the direction of your life and even contribute to the course of the human race. And that includes what happens in the world of ET disclosures that are happening nowadays, which brings us back to the topic of extraterrestrial life. Remember we talked about the possible scenarios for the ET disclosure? False alien invasions or contacts, staged more benevolent routes, governmental agendas and narratives. What if, based on our own frequency, visions, and what we represent as individuals, free thinkers in no way dependent on what the official sources feed us with as options, there could be other ways to positive disclosures none of us is really even fully aware of yet. Something is definitely opening up and brewing within the cracks of the collective field with regard to the ET life. But the official routes, as we know them, may not be all there is to possible scenarios. We already said that those will always be tainted with falsehoods and are merely symptoms of the matrix reacting to the influx of more awakened individuals on this planet, all pushing for more transparency with which to operate this society. So let's use our creative manifestation power and responsibility and stand strong in our field, holding the vision of positive changes for this race, even when you may not see all the steps to get us there yet. Remember what I said in the latest off-script episode, that I wanted to study at the university, and I sent out my application not even knowing the steps to get there, mainly financial ones? Well, sometimes the how reveals itself in the process, and we do not need to know it beforehand. It will emerge. The same goes for disclosures. I have a feeling more unexpected scenarios may still be on the horizon here. And so much depends on us and what we inject into the field with our words, frequency, and actions. And even when what we see out there may not always indicate a positive direction, we can simply use that as a reference point to say, no, thank you, and choose what we do want for our timeline instead. All is always possible. Reality is fluid, and the powers that be and the cabal cannot do much if the general population does not cooperate. Always be aware of that.
That is why free thinkers who take responsibility for their thoughts and actions, and who do not follow the norm, become power nodes in the matrix, as they hold a very strong manifestation power that overrides the very collective unconscious they are in, to the point where they influence it, more than it influences them.
And for our next video, it is time to switch the subject a bit and get closer to what is actually going on in the UFO and disclosure communities these days. I have many important videos in preparation to do with all that and to present our information. Are ETs interdimensional? Demons? Fallen angels? Do they believe in God? Why don't they land already? How do they operate their ships? What's the deal with the moon? Etc. Also, I am finally going to tell you more about the sources of our information, the off-Earth friends I have been mentioning. For that, I will actually invite a guest, someone who knows them closely as well. For now, for our next video, and with the public interest drawn to the topic by the recent Spielberg movie, The Disclosure Day, we will look at one of the most obvious questions on everyone's mind for sure. Are ETs good or bad? What are their intentions? Should we be afraid or be open to them? I will present our perspective in the next video. Thank you for watching this one, and to finish off, let's listen to Priya for final metaphysical contemplations on the subject of reality manifestation. Thank you, Priya, and thank you for watching this one, and until next time.
You exist within a continuous medium of potential energy. You exist within the ether, and you are built of the ether. And every single conscious being is an emitting source within that field. So your thoughts, your ideas, your beliefs, everything you hold within your being is constantly transmitting. So the question is not whether your mind is able to influence reality. The question is, how does it do it? Let's start with this. Every thought you have is a wave. It has frequency, it has pattern, it has directional focus. And when it enters the etheric field, it behaves exactly as any wave behaves. It travels, it reflects, and it interferes with other waves, including its own reflection coming back on itself. So, when a thought is held with sufficient focus, the frequency is sustained, and the outgoing wave and its reflection interfere constructively. When this occurs within the ether, energy concentrates and it stabilizes. So these points of harmonic concentration are called nodes. They are not random, they form only when the frequency holds the correct harmonics. Any contradiction in the emission disrupts the pattern and the node could collapse. But when the frequency holds, it bends back upon itself, and the outgoing wave and its reflection don't simply cancel out or amplify the line, they fold back in on a continuous self-sustaining loop. This is the toroidal form. It is a donut-shaped flow of energy where the wave is constantly returning to its own source, feeding itself, sustaining itself. So the toroid is not just a shape, it's what the standing wave becomes when it closes back in on itself. So at the centre of the toroid, which is the point where the opposing polarities depolarize, energy is released, and we could call this 0 point energy. It's the heart of the self-sustaining structure. And what this means is that a node is both matter and experience information. It's the field responding to the instruction of a mind organising potential energy into structure. So subatomic particles are nodes, atoms are nodes. Every atom in your body is a toroidal standing wave. This is the self-sustaining loop of energy held in place by a harmonic frequency. So everything you perceive as physical reality is a stable configuration of standing wave nodes, all the way up from the subatomic scale to the architecture of galaxies. It's the same beautiful geometry, it's the same principle, and it's repeated at every level of creation. So a single thought creates a wave, but a standing wave is the kind that creates a node, the kind that forms stable matter and persistent reality. So this is why fleeting thoughts produce fleeting results, and why deep emotionally charged beliefs produce the most persistent structures in a person's reality. The mind does not just fire off a single signal and wait, it's continuously broadcasting. And of course, this also happens at a collective level. So when multiple people focus on the same point with the same intention and feeling, their wave emissions constructively interfere with each other. The node receives amplified energetic input from multiple emitting sources, accelerating the concentration of energy and the formation of structure in the shared etheric field. And the inverse is also equally true. Multiple emitters focused on the same object but with opposing intentions create destructive interference between them, cancelling rather than reinforcing that node. And this is the physics of collective reality creation. So if we wish to impact reality, or at least maintain our own sphere of influence and create our own reality, we need to try to be what's known as the dominant frequency. And what I've noticed is that most minds are scattered. So if you want to have the advantage and if you want to see things change around you, you must have focus. Because when you direct your mind without contradiction, the field has no choice but to respond. And the deepest implication of this revelation for me is this. The reality you inhabit is a cumulative standing wave pattern of your sustained mental and emotional emissions over time. When you understand this, it changes everything. You realise that consciousness creates matter, and you really, really do create reality.
Summary. Just as there are deep-seated programs within our own psyche, there are also those molding us from within a web of collectively held perceptions, the collective unconscious. That is because, on a deeper mental level, we are all connected and share many common agreements, and manifestation also happens through those agreements. That is why we are key, and why our beliefs and perceptions are so important. That is also the great reason for the mind control happening on Earth. This is also why what we put into the collective mental field matters. And it matters even more as we become more awakened. With that, we carry more responsibility for what we emit, and we become timeline engineers, both for ourselves and collectively. What we emit carries more intensity, because the more expanded we become, the purer and stronger our connection becomes with the larger etheric field from which all things emanate. This also means that the lower our emotions and frequency drop, the more negatively they affect the field as well. We must be responsible for our thoughts, feelings, and intentions. All of this also applies to ET disclosure. If we continue to hold the frequency high and anchor in the positive timeline for the human race, without ignoring possible threats, we will make that future much more reachable, if not reality itself.